Oh, look, I've got Carrie trained. Started to call you and I thought, well, it's so late now. You'll kill me.
I do not know. I haven't heard from him either way.
We'll go ahead and start. Yeah. Do you want to say your little tidbit?
If you're here tonight to speak on a COA and are not the applicant, but would like a time to speak and have evidence in reference to the COA on tonight's agenda, please come to the front of the room and sign up to speak. Otherwise, the applicant will be given the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. We'll start the meeting. If everyone will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I could have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. So approve the minutes of the October 8th, 2019 meeting. Do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll say.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Thank you very much. We will proceed to reviewing the certificate of appropriateness applications on the agenda tonight. The HRC is responsible for evaluating whether a COA request meets the criteria in the HRC design guidelines. It is important to note HRC decisions on COA are considered quasi-judicial and as such must follow specific procedural rules. In order to protect individuals' due process rights, the Commission agrees to be impartial decision makers, provide proper public notice, and consider only competent and material evidence based on facts, not conjure or hearsay testimony. So we will look at COA 1925, Kemper Art Installation. Is there any commission members that have any conflicts of interest to disclose?
Mr. Chairman, excuse me. At this time, in the spirit of full disclosure, I would like to indicate that I have notified the city of a complaint regarding this in June of this year, and therefore I would ask the commission if they would like me to recuse. I do not feel that I am an impartial voter.
Okay. Do I hear anything from any other commissioners? All right, then we will recuse you, please. Tonight's meetings will follow Robert's Rules of Order. If you're here to provide evidence for a CEO on tonight's agenda, we will recognize you at the appropriate time before yielding the floor. All speakers should come to the podium and first state their name and address for the record. Speakers should directly address the commission. Do we have any signed up?
It would just be myself and Jennifer.
Okay. I ask that all speakers signed up to provide testimony on COA 1925 come to the front to be sworn in. This is done to ensure that only facts or evidence pertaining to this item are presented to the commission. Opinion or hearsay testimony may not be entered as evidence and will not be permitted by me so as not to violate the applicant's due process rights. Okay, if we could hear from the staff, please.
The applicant on COA 1925 camper art installation is requesting approval of a COA for applicant's stated purpose for these campers is as an art installation for display through the Halloween festival. A formal complaint was filed with the city in response to this communication. The property owner filed the COA, and as a result, all action from the city has halted pending further review of this COA and a final determination by the HRC. I'll remind the commission that the art is considered a form of free speech, which is protected under the First Amendment. However, the application's basis may also, the HRC may review it based on the effects to the character of the district in the proposed location. Parcel does not currently contain any buildings of significance in terms of special significance, and while the property is identified, the parcel does not a structure listed in the design guideline inventory map of property.
Okay.
But it's intermittent.
Yeah. Not sure how to fix that. It's going in and
All right.
Can you pull up the actual application on the screen, please? May I ask some questions?
Yes, first, we'll let Jennifer, if you'll say your name and information. Sure.
Kelly, 808 Sideview Street, Graham, North Carolina. This kind of the story behind the campers is I had talked to said Kristen Herndon, working on Graham, some of the other members of Graham as well, about trying to do something to activate that space for the event that we had coming up. And in the meantime, I had campers at an auction, brought them downtown as we were working on them, and worked on them intermittently to read the insides of the campers. It kind of happened organically when we put them out there. We had such an interest in them, and people were coming out and taking pictures in front of them. They even had a wedding party come and take pictures in front of them. They got garnered a lot of interest. They were lots of posts made on Facebook and Instagram, and there was a lot of just kind of interest in doing them. So then we added a little fencing area and landscaped it and created a space there. And as we've had different events, we decorated it. As you see in there, we did a really nice thing for the Halloween festival. The city shared it on their pages. We've had a ton of Elon students come and take pictures in front of it, youth groups, lots of different groups have come down and gotten pictures made in front of it. Photographers had, talked to the Arts Council at length about trying to create kind of a place-making place where photographers kids can come and have kind of a different, you know, Halloween decorations is different than, say, the way we had it decorated for Love Graham. And it just seems to be something that people really like and really love. And, you know, I thought, okay, well, we were going to have something different there for the Veterans Day event anyways. But since we've taken them down and moved them, we've had a lot of, a ton of people say, where are the campers? Why did you move the campers? So, I mean, I'm happy to have the campers or not have the campers. I'm not doing it I'm doing it because I was kind of asked to do something with that space. And then when we got the campers, it kind of just all fell into place. And it was just something that a lot of people really liked. As far as the age, I think it goes with creating a space for placemaking, activating an otherwise empty lot. It gives a place for people to come and take Instagram, Facebook pictures. When Main Street America was on their tour of downtown, it was the only place of all the places we took them in Graham, it was the only place that they took pictures. I kind of jokingly said something to them about, you know, waiting to get a violation from the city or a complaint. And her response, and Mary Fawcett was, you know, just don't you dare take this down. This is something that makes your community unique. It's something that kind of is different. You don't see this in every town. It's a cute little thing that people can come and take pictures in front of. And it didn't have to be there forever. It's just a temporary spot, and it's much better than a parking lot. So, you know, we maintain it. We landscape it. It creates a gathering place. And it's a cool little thing that we can do when we are doing different events. We had a ghost tour this past month. We had over 150 participants. It gave them a place where they could sit down and wait for the next tour to start. So if you want me to keep it, I'll keep it. If you don't want it, I'm happy to move it. But a lot of people seem to want it. A lot of people seem to like it. As far as the dates, I believe most of the buildings in that area, I mean, even the courthouse, I don't know that I agree that it's 19th century. I believe it's 20th century, with the buildings being, a lot of the buildings being even the courthouse is 1923. So these are 1950s. So there's plenty of buildings there in the downtown that are 1940s, 1950s. So I don't think I'm not altering any historic building. I don't think it takes away from anything, and it kind of makes our town a little eclectic, a little unusual, kind of gives it a little something. And I'm sorry Elaine didn't like it, but there's a ton of people that do like it. So, you know, hope you guys will consider those things. And
Okay.
happened organically from what people liked. So,
All right. Thank you, Jennifer. Do you think they have a question for Jennifer?
I do have some general questions.
Okay, please.
So the application makes reference to dates when you wanted it to be there, which was during the Halloween festival. So why are we just hearing about it now that it's November? I'm confused about that. So is this to go forward for next year, or was this for this past year, what we've already gone through?
I didn't know I was violating anything. So I think there's not really an ordinance that says you can have art installations or not have art installations. And so I guess since we're a complaint-based.
So are you asking for approval retroactively, or?
No,
to
it
go
would be
forward?
going forward. But I
was not
did
clear
not
about that.
ask for approval. I didn't think I needed to get approval. I mean, I'm not modifying a historic building. So I didn't know I was violating anything. I mean, literally had no idea that I was violating anything. I think they had to look for something that I was violating, because I don't think there's anything in the historic development ordinance that I'm violating. So the only
Well,
thing
the
that,
city attorney apparently thought so.
no,
because He
that's,
suggested we look at it.
I disagree with that. I don't think the city attorney thought that I was violating anything. He just said that since you don't speak to it, since there's no ordinance that speaks to it, just apply and then have the board decide whether it's okay or not okay. But I don't think he necessarily found that we were in.
Well, I don't know. I'm reading what was in the application and the staff report.
Well, I think, I was told that if I just put license tags on it, there's nothing that they could do if I don't call it an art installation. They're like, well, do you want to call it an art installation? I was like, I don't care. What do you want to do? And they're like, well, we kind of want to see it still there. So I was like, okay, well, then I'll call it
Who
an
is
art
they?
installation. Well, I have talked to Aaron Holland, and I've talked to
So city staff.
different city staff.
Okay.
Jennifer, I have a question, sort of relates to what she's talking about. So are you asking us to have the trailers indefinitely, or do you have a specific time that the trailers would be there for a specific time and then they would go away?
Well, we're looking at starting construction on that property in the spring. And so they're going to have to go away just because they're going to be in the way. But I literally just anticipate having them maybe for, and again, if you all say that you don't want them, fine. It's fine. But I get irritated, I think, a little bit, like it's like you talk to one person, well, you talk to a lot of people and they say, oh, this is great, like you doing this. And then you get one person that doesn't like something. And it's like all my efforts kind of went for nothing. I mean, it took time and effort to kind of put that all together, and it's got to be better than an empty parking lot. And it's not a permanent installation. It'll be something that I'm happy to move in the spring, or even if you wanted to agree to something that was just for 6 months or something, but until we get started on that space. But it's certainly not indefinite.
Okay. Thank you. Question?
I have a comment. You say you've had a lot of people ask where they were and they like them, but I have also had a lot of people say to me, when is this kind of worn its welcome out? When is it going to leave? So no, not everybody in Graham likes it. And just one person has not complained. So, I could understand it for maybe the Love Graham, and I did not expect it to still be here even through this past Halloween last week. So I think it's kind of worn its welcome out as far as I'm concerned. So I also looked at it as an advertisement for y'all's campground movie thing that's going in off of Jimmy Kerr Road too, sort of subliminally.
I mean, wow, there's no signage for that.
No.
Do you have any questions?
Not
Do you have any
really.
more questions?
I did want to ask, there was a section on the application that was checked yes. Is there any approval pending by any other regulatory or administrative authority which may have a bearing on the proposed project? That was checked yes. Am I assuming that refers to the construction you're planning to do in that space, or what does that mean?
Alexa, can I see that?
This is the application that was submitted.
Cool.
I see it at the bottom.
Yeah, at the bottom, underneath the box.
I missed it.
So
I
Alexa,
don't believe there would be any other regulatory action pending if this commission approves the application.
so what would be an example of that applying in a case like this?
If they were applying for, let's just say, outdoor dining, for example, the city has encroachment agreements for temporary encroachments that require additional insurance to be taken out on that space to cover the liability the city might incur from somebody tripping over that furniture and having an injury.
Sure.
So something like that, you guys could approve that application. Not necessarily that requires it right now. You could approve that, but they would also have to meet
Those criteria for the
them to be approved. Get the
final approval from the city. So do you have any idea what that refers to? Why you
I
checked
guess
yes?
that was checked in error. I don't know. I don't know of anything else pending. I guess I just didn't really understand why I was having to even, I guess I sat on the historic commission, and if someone puts something on their property, I mean, maybe there just wasn't any complaints, but I guess I don't really understand what gives the commission the authority to even say anything about the campers. I honestly didn't think I was violating anything, genuinely. There's no development ordinance that says that the commission has authority over that, that I know of, and maybe I'm just not, but I'd like for that to be clear. I guess I just don't understand, but just trying to go along, I said, okay, I'm fine with submitting something. But again, it would just be temporary and something that I think people, we would be decorating it for Christmas and then probably moving them in storage. And then, like I said, in the spring, we'll be working on the space.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
I guess I'm still a little wondering what was on the mind of the city attorney when because it says in here that it was felt by the city attorney that it was appropriate to bring this forward.
I think, right.
Last month where the Taylor was.
Right, the Arts Council had to
Had to.
come before us.
Yes, that's correct. Right. Okay.
That's why.
So all public art that's being applied to the COA is coming before the
commission.
commission versus staff approval or denial, or I can't deny anything after you guys.
Okay.
I have another question.
Mhm.
You had mentioned insurance. If it were an outdoor dining facility, they would need insurance in case somebody was injured. Well, is there insurance on that lot in case somebody gets injured
Yes.
up there? Okay, that's fine.
And that's also not city-owned property, it's private property, so.
Any other questions for Jennifer?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer.
I'm sorry, I have to leave because the Alpine
Okay, cool.
Award and also John Deere got one from the attorney's office. Award
That's
set up.
fine.
Oh, so.
Thank you, Jennifer. So did we have some other people to
Were
speak?
there other people that signed up, Debbie?
Chuck and
Southwood Court Graham. I'm new to this process. I don't really understand everything as far as the rules and regulations with the historic commission. However, as a citizen of Graham for years and years and years and an employee for 30 years, I really don't understand what the big deal is.
Okay. Let me
Oh,
the way this works is we are now in a quasi judicial hearing. So only factual information can come to this. They cannot be biased by any personal opinion of any kind. So now it's only facts. If you have facts related to the campers, the site, something.
So you can't give an opinion if you like it or dislike it, none of
No,
that.
sir. No, sir. This is quasi judicial hearing that we're in right now.
Okay, well, I'll give the rest of my time to whoever's next.
okay,
There
thank you.
isn't such a thing. Thank you.
Do we have someone else?
I think Chuck was also.
Chuck, do you have something?
Chuck Alley, 808 Side View Street. The question is, do you want something there decorated for Christmas or not?
Okay, stop.
Oh.
That's not a
You
fact.
stop for a minute. You're speaking
That's
out there and he can try. Do we not go rule of order?
Yes, we do.
I will talk to him. So if we want to leave them there for the next month, it's fine, but the thing is, like, I have two tenants, so the city actually approached me with one new person this past week. If I let it go with them, come back, so I haven't said it'd be spring of the year, which I'm leaning towards spring of the year. She is, and what she's gonna bring into the town, because she's,
So,
the thing was Christmas.
so your time limit is to the spring.
They're not even gonna.
Okay,
I would say after Christmas.
okay,
We're not gonna stay there long because we just thought we'd bring them back and decorate for Christmas. And then after that, we thought we would move. Because if I go with the latter of the two, which staff on me, he wants to sign a lease like tomorrow.
okay,
And so I don't know that I'm gonna go with him because I feel like it's seasonal. And I was looking for a business that would like.
okay.
So that's the only question. If y'all, if you.
Right,
It'll never be done again. Because of that lot.
okay,
And it was just something that we thought. We
right,
didn't know that we were gonna have. Way more people were. And so. On the side of farms.
right.
Made the front cover of the state. Didn't get up in front of the state. I'm the one that has to pull them back up there. They're in storage now, and I have to set them all back up. So it doesn't matter.
Okay,
We will decorate them. Anyway.
okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Um, So I'll now close the public meeting hearing. No further comment from the public will be heard, and the item will be discussed amongst the commission only. Do I have any questions or discussion? Well, right. And unfortunately, it's vague right at the moment, and we are going to have to work on that. I think my thing is that is the time limit, and that we're calling it a public art piece. So we need to have a time limit for the piece to be there and then for it to leave. And so that's my discussion. I don't know what you.
I agree with that. We do need to set some kind of regulations for public art. I thought that was one reason the actual Love Graham sign was built out of foam, because it wouldn't be permanent.
Initially, I think that was the concern.
Lasted longer than I thought it would.
So, any other discussion?
I was just looking over the parking area section of our. But it really talks about, because this is a parking lot currently.
No, it's not
It's not a
actually.
parking lot.
Mm-mm.
It's just a vacant.
That's correct.
It was just used as a business that parked cars
Cars
there.
there,
because
Right, but
that's
it's not
used car
considered a
lot, but
parking
not
lot.
a Parking lot, no.
No. Is there any other discussion? Um,
I guess I would say, in my individual opinion, for whatever that matters, the flavor of that display is more summertime. And would it be more appropriate to have something else that, or empty, either way, that is more appropriate for the fall and winter time of year?
Well, okay, right, but it could be depending on how they
On
display
how
it.
it's-
If
how it's
displayed, it
decorated.
can be
Yeah.
any season.
You don't usually think about campers in the winter.
But even beyond that, I guess I'm struggling with, is it historically appropriate for our?
So being the being the
Yes,
other half
please.
that I have, that's a hard question for me
Yes.
because art can relate in any,
Transcend.
right.
Yeah.
So,
That's what I'm struggling with.
so we need a motion. I think I'll try to make a motion. I move to approve the application for COA 1925 for the property located at 13 Southeast Court Square with a limited time display for January 1, 2020, that it would come down. And that's my motion. I hope.
So I'm just going to try to repeat that. I move to approve with conditions the application for COA 1925 for the property located at 13 Southeast Court Square with limited time, January 1st removal of the art installation.
May I change my motion?
Yeah, go ahead.
Since the first is, of course, a holiday, let's do by the 12th, or the 12th of January, sorry, 2020. So amend my motion. It's is there a second to that motion? Okay, there's no second. I need another motion, please.
I'm thinking. Can I adjust that slightly? And my motion would be that I move to approve with conditions COA 1925, that the art installation be there for a temporary period of time. To be removed, so it's there now, or will be brought back, I guess.
Mhm.
So do we say, can we say brought back,
I think the wording you said initially is fine.
without putting specific dates?
No, but I mean, I'm sorry, I interrupted. you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was trying to think about what would be the time period. Do we put specific dates in there, or should it be a certain amount of weeks? Help.
Either one.
Either one would be sufficient? Okay. So between now and the after January 1st.
It might be easier for code enforcement if there's a set
More of a date? Okay, well, that's what I wanted to know, basically. Okay, so today is the 12th of November. So we'll say until, when do they typically take the holiday decorations down? Match it up with that? Following January 1st, so January 3rd. So January 10th would be that next. So let me try this again. Okay, so I move to approve with conditions the application for COA 1925 for the property located at 13 Southeast Court Square. The conditions being that the art installation be present for a temporary period of time from today until January the 10th, 2020.
Right, there's a motion. Is there a second? I'll second it. So is there any discussion? Okay, I'll call a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed. So 2, 4, and 1 opposed. Thank you. It passes. I'm sorry. I didn't say. Okay. So now we've closed our quasi judicial and we are moving into just our regular meeting. Can we have the affirmative maintenance update, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Worthy. Back in March, the HRC received a request from a citizen to look into drafting an affirmative maintenance ordinance. And just a little refresh, since it's been quite a while, took me some time to do some of this research. Affirmative maintenance ordinances are intended to protect important historic resources from falling into disrepair and eventually becoming uninhabitable due to poor maintenance by property owners. Tonight's report is based on staff's research and at this point is purely educational, so no action is required on this item. In the research that was conducted, the North Carolina General Assembly has given a governing board of any municipality the authority to enact an ordinance to prevent the demolition by neglect of any designated landmark or any building or structure within an established historic district, provided that the ordinance has safeguards to protect the property owners from undue economic hardship. Therefore, as an advisory board, the HRC could make a recommendation to City Council to consider adopting an affirmative maintenance provision within the development ordinance. Due to the complexity of this issue, if the HRC would like to pursue a text amendment, I would recommend a small task force of members to identify specific details of the language of the text that they were proposing. These details would need to include the standard for the level of deterioration that would trigger this action. Also, the process for investigating, notice, and hearings and decisions on these matters, as well as the standards for the evidence that's being provided for those cases and the remedies and appeals that could be pursued by individuals with properties that were identified. All those details should probably be ironed out before it goes to City Council for consideration. Or you could ask City Council whether that's something they would like HRC to pursue further as a first step, see if it's worth taking the time to make that, pursue that action. As listed in the staff report, there are a number of pros and cons to such action. The foremost con on the list was because in North Carolina, the demolition application for historic properties, the HRC only has the authority to stay the demolition of a historic property for up to a year. If this was enacted, then they could potentially put an application in for demolition of the property that you guys are ruling that they need to fix up. And then after 100 year, the 1 year period could demolish the property. So it might, instead of saving a property from ongoing neglect, might have the opposite of the intended effect. So there are some pros and cons for how you'd like to proceed. And this is one that's fairly litigious. When I looked at other communities that do have these in place, these ordinances in place, it's been several, for some cases, they've had several years of back and forth lawsuits from the property owner. And in many cases, not a lot of action has happened between the start of the proceedings to the end. There have been some good results. For example, this is a picture in Raleigh where they've had some positives come out of it, but it also requires cooperation from the private property owner. So that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you
Do you have
for
any
your,
other questions or things you want to ask specifically?
May I ask a question? Do you mind? As far as Graham, I understand the benefit here. A couple of things. Overall, what is the benefit to the city of Graham for entering into an agreement like this?
It wouldn't necessarily be an agreement. It would be a
Well,
requirement of
yeah.
maintenance for the property. It protects historic properties from, or it attempts to protect
Right.
historic properties from falling into disrepair, which can potentially affect the property values of neighboring properties. It's a proactive approach to reduce the likelihood of a property owner not maintaining their property. And it's intended to maintain the historic character and integrity of the historic district.
so I have another question. If we pursue this, are we only able to pursue it for the historic district that we are?
It would only be for the locally adopted historic district at this time. I don't believe that you could use a historic district that's nationally recognized to draw a line around that and say that you're keeping those safe through this ordinance, so to speak. So it'd only be ones that you have purview over at this time, or which includes landmarks too. So that's the courthouse and the Oneida. Thank you.
Right. I like I like the idea because, but the buts in there, that like the district that we're over there's not a lot of buildings that are at this point, very few. I know there's one I could think
If
of.
I recall, the one that was in reference when the original, it was within this local district.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Right.
believe so.
So I was hoping that it could go into the local district.
To the North Main Street.
Yeah. Because the thing is, for this, why I'm interested in it is because when a house is removed, it ruins the neighborhood. Because a house that is put back most often is not put back within the same guidelines as the original house was. And we can see that if we go through any of the neighborhoods in Graham, you can see that all over the place, where a house has been torn down and then this one-story nothing of a house has been put back, and it does not relate or fit into the neighborhood. And that ruins the neighborhood. It's not just aesthetics, it also is how they interact in the neighborhood. And so for me, this is a very important piece to trying to save neighborhoods. But for us to look at it, if we can't go beyond our scope, it doesn't really help us, because most of our yes, there's one I can think of in our area, but most of our buildings are not decaying like this. And I don't know that it would be, but I don't know, I would love to see.
I don't know that it would help in the scenario you posed with the demolition of a project either. It would only apply if they're like in disrepair, not necessarily.
Well, that's what I was meaning, in my neighborhood, we already had one house that fell in and they had to tear it down. There's another house right behind me that eventually will be torn down because the city won't do anything or can't do anything about it, and it's going to fall down. So we're in that historic district that you're talking about that we can't do anything about. So
until it's a locally
right.
designated historic district. If it becomes one, then you could certainly implement this in that location.
Didn't we talk about this early on, a year ago, about expanding the historic district? And we kind of came in touch with a lot of extra information, certainly from the state of North Carolina, made presentations. And I'm wondering what happened to that, whether it's too little, too late. I mean, I completely agree with Carrie about, having some sort of a mechanism to protect and preserve some of these old houses and residences. But if we can't identify them, or if we can't include them in the scope of our ability to protect them, then this makes it very difficult for us, for the HRC. It's almost useless in terms of that particular issue.
I know it might be useless, but I think that we should make a committee to look at it and see what we can come up with to at least have it, because I think it's something that the city council needs to look at and think about. And if that's what we're here for, and if we don't do our job in presenting to the city council what we feel is necessary to protect our community, they're not going to look at it or even think about it. And they might say no, but at least we will be able to present to them something that they need to look at and think about. So I would say, I would, in my opinion, say that I would like to have a committee to go forward and look at this. And it might help in a few cases that we have here. And then at least if, I just think it's important information that needs to go forward.
I agree. I can
I do
think of
too.
2 houses in the district that are already maybe not quite this bad, but one is probably this bad back there on Maple Street. But the other one is inhabited by business, but I think they could do a better job.
So would this govern both the residential and commercial properties?
If they are within the historic district, yes.
At least for us to look at it. So do we have to make a motion to make a committee, or what is the process? I'm sorry, I don't have the.
You don't have to make a motion to appoint a committee. You can actually appoint them. You can ask for volunteers.
Okay.
Just as a committee off of the HRC.
Okay, thank you. So I know I would like to be on the committee. Does anyone else like to be
I'll
on the
volunteer.
How many people do you want?
committee? Right.
I mean, here we are.
Right.
4 of us right now.
Okay. All right. Well, we can't have, we can only have 3. 3.
You guys-
So, okay. So we have 3. We will set a committee meeting through Alexa. Thank you, Alexa.
So that was Carrie, Carla, Elaine?
No,
Oh, Jeanette.
Jeanette. And yes.
So Cal 808 Southview Street, so what they passed, if I'm clearing this, it's like a 120-day window for demolition, or?
Yeah, so the state says you can have up to a year to
Okay.
to have a stay of demolition. After that point, the property owner can do whatever they can.
Currently, right now, if it's an historical district, we have a 360-day window that y'all can stop something being tore down.
Right.
And where that come into effect and worked is on the southeast corner of Court Square. 20-some years ago, when Jay Burke, before he bought it, there was the Bishop family, I got them put it on the market. And there was a bank that had approached the Bishop family about tearing the whole corner down. But once we found out that the Historical Commission could stop that from coming down for 360 days, it kind of deterred them from wanting to move forward on the thing, which opened up a window for some local developer to come in and buy it and save the corner, which is the idea, was to save the corner in the first place. So long as we're like, the 360-day window encourages people to it gives you an opportunity to somebody else take a look at it. So it's just a thought. I just want to run it by you. So it's what we have now, not that there's some things you couldn't tweak that wouldn't work, because the idea is to save houses and everything. The downside to it is I agree with there was a house on North Main that we came down and we all spoke out against, so we didn't want it there because the house was falling and nobody wanted to buy it, and they sold the house to a nonprofit, and what they build does not go, it's architecturally doesn't even fit there. And so they act like we were against the world because we spoke out against what was happening that night. But to us, there's no and even I think Lee was there and we were discussing, there's nothing that in that area that says you got to have so many square feet. There's no ordinances. There's no homeowner association. So basically, they could have put a double wide trailer there if they wanted to. So the idea that didn't add any value to the people on either side, and that's the thing that I think that as much as I don't like to be governed at times, I do think that you should consider going up Main Street and protecting what we do have there.
Sure.
I do. So it's something that y'all probably do need to look at, because the idea is to save, like what you've done with your house. Had you not bought that, it would not look like it does today.
Sure.
And it looks really good. So I just hope that y'all head in the right direction. This in support of what protecting our history. Anyway.
Yeah, I would say
Thank you.
we are all of the same mind.
Thank you. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you. All right. I've lost it. So we need to discuss the black, white paint colors as a minor COA. Alexa, do you have anything to say on that before we discuss?
Just at the last meeting, several members requested there be discussion about this. Currently, the historic Sherwin-Williams color palette does not include a stark white or a stark black, and there were several projects of late. I recall the black awnings on
Right.
and shutters being painted on the building across from the Opera House.
Mhm.
And those had to come before you because I didn't have the administrative ability to approve the painting of the shutters. The awning was already a pre-approved color for the awning. And then Jason's building, I believe, the not new construction, but the Hibachi restaurant.
Right.
The new facade was to be
Black.
painted white, I believe.
Oh, on the
Yes.
On
building
the
itself.
corner
Yeah.
there
With
where the
black
bumblebee is.
awnings.
And so just a further discussion of whether that's something that you guys want to retain ownership of, or if you would like staff to deal with those.
You have the colors.
The two colors were in the staff report and I have them here. So it'd be a black or a white that's either this color or a similar color. I wanted to give some flexibility because there's about 500 shades of white. And I didn't want to say that you have to use a Sherwin-Williams color. I know there's some property owners that use a different manufacturer, and so something that's along these lines.
Does anyone have any problem with the staff? Us including the black and white in the staff colors? Do I have a motion to accept this?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we accept the black and white colors as a minor COA that can be approved by staff.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. Read the motion one more time, please.
Motion to amend the historic resources, to amend to add black and white or similar colors to the list of colors that can be approved as a minor COA by staff.
Okay, is there any discussion? We have a discussion.
I don't think that it's appropriate for me to ask the question of just speak now, but I just want to make sure white-ish colors and black-ish colors could end up being 10,000 shades of white, including tan, alabaster. I call myself white when I'm pink most days.
Right.
I think if you guys are going to do that, that there be some limitations on what those colors should be. Hopefully, right now, if somebody came in here and said, this is black, I'd have to approve it, even though I think it's kind of grayish. But you see what I'm
Okay,
saying?
so I guess
I do.
ours was, I guess I was thinking we were approving the
Yeah.
black of night and the high reflective white.
So we could do just these colors, but by doing that, we're just doing Sherwin-Williams number 6993 and Sherwin-Williams color 7757.
Okay, so,
We need some
so can
parameters.
we,
And there is
But if
already
you
a
take that-
gray in the historic
right,
guide. I mean, so I don't know. I'm just throwing out.
So these two colors that you researched are in the Sherwin-Williams palette.
They're in the palette. They're just not in the historic exterior colors palette.
right. But we use the Sherwin-Williams palette,
Correct.
correct? So if somebody wants to use beyond that, there, it has to match. I mean, if they want to use another paint color, paint than Sherwin-Williams, they have to match it with that color, which most days you can do that.
You can get probably fairly close.
You're right. So
So if you want to
The
say.
fact the white says interior, does that make any difference? The other one says interior, exterior.
No, that's just the type of paint. It doesn't have to do with.
And why reflective white? I mean, I don't want a building that's going to glow. So why reflective white?
Seems like that, to me, that white is white, and that's what we are wanting. I understand your, the term.
Yeah, but I think Nathan's point is well taken. We don't want anything that's kind of off-white to the point of tan next to a building that's
Right.
used the reflective white. So I'm in favor of having some parameters that include maybe a shade or two on either side. That won't be potentially, problematic. And while still being sensitive to the business owners who want to paint.
We're going to get the swatch of historic paint colors. I didn't bring that in tonight, but I think it would be helpful to show there are existing colors that are basically on either side of black. There's a gray
Sure.
already in that palette, and there's also an off-white that's approvable. But we have gotten specific requests for stark black and stark white. So, and that's certainly up to you. If you feel like those are not historically appropriate colors, we can look at that.
Definitely stark.
And I think the term reflective in the white is maybe a misnomer in terms of it's basically the color of a piece of paper. I don't know that it's like reflective, like you're going to see a stoplight when you shine lights on it, so to speak. There's a black in there that's more of a gray, something like that. It's that gray top. The closest black is
French. Maybe library pewter.
there.
You're not very black. Tricorn black is the color y'all approved for the.
For the
Maybe.
shutters.
I didn't look.
Maybe. Put it
I looked
for
this
the
up online.
Gondola. No,
Kind of.
the thing over the.
Oh, yeah, pergola.
Gondola, pergola, all same thing.
Mhm.
But there's no black
The
or
black
white
and
you're
the
showing us.
white? What,
I don't
what are
see
we
a black
looking
or
at
a
here?
white.
So did you want to show them a different palette? There's a
I don't know if there's,
timeless.
are
Are you
these,
just looking at blacks and whites here?
Well, I think that's the thing is that there weren't any blacks and whites in the historic palette, which is why they had to keep coming before you.
Right, so, in this palette, there is not any blacks or whites.
And this is the Sherwin-Williams.
Right.
That
that's
we
sure.
There's
approve.
no blacks and whites. It's just that there's no blacks and whites in the historic set.
Right,
There's a whole one that's called whites. It's just
Where did they get the one for the pergola and the sesquicentennial?
from somewhere else in here.
Okay.
So that's white, right?
Show us, can I see the high reflective white in there?
7757? Can you look it up by number?
Yeah, put that umbrella down.
7757.
Yes.
we said,
No, of course they're not.
if we said a car,
Way the motion language is written, it says, add black, that number or similar colors, or white and that number or similar colors to the list of Sherwin-Williams that may be approved by a minor.
This is what they use.
That, my problem is with the similar.
With similar colors.
so can we
That's-
just
Is that
say
not stark
these
black
two?
that everybody's
Well,
wearing?
we're limited to those two.
Make parameters within the one.
You sound like my sister.
I was gonna say on the color chart, on the,
There's quite a range
there's
of
quite a range.
shades there.
So can we not limit it to one?
Let's just,
Can we say
let's just
tricorn
do
tricorn
that,
black?
and
On both sides
Yeah.
of the
what
palette.
it means is then if they pick a different color or a different shade, they have to come before us, but at
Right.
least the
The
staff
option
has.
is there to allow for.
Allow
Right.
that.
But with limited options, I think that's.
So, can we get the motion
So,
amended?
so I'll make a motion to amend the Historic
White
Resources
on the
Handbook,
screen.
minor work section to add,
Not so bad.
um,
Just
That's not
because that's a
really
white, right? Let's just do two.
so, let me start over. I make a motion to amend the Historic Resources Handbook, minor work section to add black SW 6993 or white SW 7757 to the list of Sherwin-Williams historic paint colors that may be approved as a minor COA.
Okay, I have the second amended to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any other discussion now? Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It passes. Thank you very much. Thank you, staff, for doing that.
My pleasure.
And then we have the grant process, if you want to update us on that, please.
So there was a request to just go through, since this year was our first time with this
Oh,
new
yeah.
process of the grant matrix, to identify priorities among the applications that were submitted for the facade grant. You're welcome to discuss amongst yourselves and share any feedback that you have or any changes that you'd like to.
So for me, there was a couple of things. One was the, let's see, where is the matrix? Whether it was lost it. Oh, historic designation. So the historic designation is very specific. But we have on there, the way it was left was for us to decide ourselves. I mean, if we looked up the property, we would have known what it is. But if you didn't look up the property, then we were giving it a 1, 2, 3 that was not maybe accurate. And so I don't really like that question, the way it's done. I think I did talk to the staff and they're not allowed to fill that in. If there's a way for us to know specifically in the application what the correct designation is, so that everybody is scoring it the same way, which, because I think that is not necessarily fair if one person's giving it a 1, but it's really supposed to be a 3.
So maybe adding a question within the application that says what, or even if, yeah, within the application to say what historic designation does this have, and then giving a map of the properties there, or some way for that applicant, because they may not know.
Right. They don't, I mean,
These-
I didn't necessarily know myself. But some of them came out in the discussion. So then I could mark it, but some of them I was just guessing, which
Okay.
was, I guess, my fault in that I didn't do my studies. But I feel like that one is a little loose because there's a very specific answer to that one. It's not us deciding, it's a very specific.
There's a map of it, essentially.
Yes. So I'm a little concerned about that question, or how we deal with that question. And I feel like we need to change the process for that.
So we could, would you like to remove the question? Would you like to put in a link to the map so the applicant could fill out that portion of the application themselves? Or would you like staff to, in the staff report, give a description?
What is the benefit of leaving it out?
Sure.
And are we allowed to? I mean, is that part of?
You can remove anything on this
I
matrix.
think it's a good question.
Okay, question, but. we need to
I
know what
just
it is.
think, but it's one that has I mean, it already has an answer. I mean,
And I guess for me, what are those definitions of those 4 options? Intrusive, fill, contributing, and pivotal.
So pivotal would be, this is important to the integrity of the historic district.
Okay.
Contributing would be, it's part of the character that creates the historic district. A fill building would be something that was put in after the period of significance. An intrusive building would be something that is outside of the character of the historic district.
and so, I mean, it's an important question. I mean, it's important to be rated, I think.
Yes.
But it already has the answer, so that number should already be on the score sheet,
I
basically.
agree. Yeah.
I mean, we should already know what that number is. It should be, it's kind of one of those
That
that
we-
should be on there, and
Yeah.
We already get the
To
score.
inform us, should be designated on the application. This is a pivotal. This is a contributing, or this is a fill.
And if we know that, then we already mark that on our score, our matrix.
Okay, I'll take some notes as we go and then provide some of that feedback in the form of how it would flow to the next
Applicant.
right,
applicant.
right.
In other
And
words,
you
you're
guys
giving
can
us the
review
answer.
and then approve that new process or new documents. Is that okay?
Just out of curiosity, in that scoring, you have 1, 2, 4, 5, and 0.
There wasn't a 3, there wasn't a, I mean, we could,
So why not 1, 2, 3, 4? I guess, I don't know, I'm asking what the reasoning is behind that.
fill and intrusive don't necessarily contribute to
Right?
the
So they would
historic
have a lower
district.
rate, sure.
There seems to be less impetus to have, I don't know, but that's certainly up
What
to you
would-
how you'd like to.
What would 3 have been?
There's not a 3, those are all of the
Yeah.
designations.
Yeah,
There's only 4 designations.
It's almost like that's a separation between things that are not so impactful and the other
Things
two that
Yeah,
are.
right.
So they should have a higher score.
Sure, that makes sense.
And 3 is so average that who cares?
Yeah, I agree. I think that needs to be.
Thank you, Alexa.
Mhm.
Okay, but
Any other,
there's another one for me. So art in the grant process does not work. And we had the mural, it doesn't work. if you score any type of art on this thing, it is not going to get any money because it's going to be down there, bottom 0. So I really feel like that art, even though I know who I am and I hate it, but I really feel like art should be separated or not allowed for this grant process. I think art should go to, we have the Appearance Commission. They have money. Art should be going to the Appearance Commission. That fits into the Appearance Commission. It fits into what they're trying to do. It does not fit within our granting process, not meaning that we don't want art in our district. It just means that within these guidelines, what we're looking at to give money to, art does not work. That's just my opinion.
Can I ask some follow-up questions? Just so, for example, the question on aesthetic improvement, for some people, an art project might have considerable impact on property's appearance. So they would get a higher score in that category. They might also get a higher score in somebody says that as significant improvement to the aesthetic character of the area. I don't know. I'm just throwing out, there are sections that it might score better in.
Right. But
It may
the
not.
bottom line, in the end, it's going to come down low on the scoring.
And is that the intent of the entire commission? Would they like to see different way to score art, or you want it? I'm just trying to.
It was just something that, because we had the mural, and I was trying to score it, and looking at it, and I realized that, and then I started thinking about other things that would come in within that scope, and for the money that we're giving away, because we're giving it to projects that improve the historic district, I didn't see that it would ever get scored high enough to give money to do it. Now, I'm just throwing out these ideas. I'm not saying that. This is just my opinion here. I mean, not that I wanted that, because I was looking for it in there. But.
And I do have one other question for signs. So, for example, if someone's wanting to repaint a wall sign, for example, it would be difficult to say you can't have a mural, but we're willing to pay for a wall sign. Those are, in our ordinance, at least the same thing. So I'm just throwing out things. You can
Right,
tell
and
me
that's
that
what I'm
gonna
just throwing
stipulate
out.
no art, but
I'm just throwing this out too.
yeah.
It was just something I noticed as going through the process.
I hadn't thought about it before, but it really is it's a good point, actually. And when you think about it, you extrapolate the art out of the other things, the other grant applications that have come before us, and they are quite structural, requiring some building and whatever. I don't know. I'm a little ambivalent about this.
It's just, go ahead. Yes.
Mary Fawcett, Downtown Development Coordinator, 201 South Main Street. First, I want to compliment that I heard from an applicant, wow, the matrix worked. And I feel like that applies in the discussion that's happening now. It's labeled a facade grant, the allocations of money, and the hierarchy of how you score will filter out those projects. In my role as Downtown Development Coordinator, I wouldn't want to be restrictive to exclude a project or a category. The matrix should filter that through scoring. So if something gets a low score, the other projects were higher in priority. It also, the variables are what projects are up against one another at that time. So this year we had several projects, one including a mural or public art piece. Next year we may not, or vice versa. We may just have that type of project without any other projects related to cleanings of facades or enhancements of facades. The matrix works in the favor of prioritizing projects on the scoring side of things. And so you're getting at your answer. And if it's not awarded, there is the fallback of the appearance commission to where they can go. And maybe the opportunity there is that they'll score higher because of the scoring and the individuals who are filling out the matrix. So that's what I bring to the conversation.
Thank you, Mary. So those are the two things I had on my mind. Does anybody else have any things on their mind on, since this was the first time we went through it?
Yeah, I agreed with you about the historic designation. I struggled with that one myself, so thanks for bringing it up.
I think,
Yeah, I would agree with that. Historic designation feature.
I agree.
Because we don't have the ability to make that.
Right.
While we're sitting here. Building. As far as the other one, whether art should be included or not, I can see the pros and cons. But I think I would agree a little bit with Mary's comments about the scoring matrix will put forth the priority of the project. And there is the option for them to also apply for the appearance.
I do have a, so they can't get money from us and them, the appearance for the same project, can they?
There is currently no language that says you cannot be awarded funds from the Appearance Commission and the HRC.
I don't know that that's so good.
Happens.
You can look into if you would like to make recommendations for that.
Well, that might be something to look into. We only have a small amount of money to spread out. Most granting processes don't allow you to combine from one
From the same pot.
from the same pot. They don't usually allow that. So that might be something to look into too. We have a year, right, to look into all
Before this
this.
happens again.
I would say we have 6 months so
Okay,
that we
6
can
months.
write it down,
yeah,
get it
shorten it down.
approved, and then submit that or post that online so that the applicants know what the standards are when they're making their,
application.
deciding what they choose as their application, so to speak.
Well,
Okay.
who closes first, us or the appearance commission?
The HRC closes first. The Appearance Commission is the following
So
week.
Go ahead, Nathan.
it's actually the appearance commission who needs the language too, because they've
Terms of
have
their
been
own
awarded
decision.
funds in the past, completed it. I mean, because we're the past as far as applying for both pots of money. We are considered the past on the last
So
question.
we have similar language on our matrix.
The application deadline, however, is for the Appearance Commission is before before you guys will make a
the
determination. So they won't be able to indicate that on their application, whether they were awarded funding or not.
I think it's more,
But they can be asked that question
Correct.
if they come to the meeting. When
right, that grant might have to be pulled. Yes, if you have a comment.
I have a clarifying question. There's a couple pieces. The first one is, if I applied for two pieces, one being that I wanted to put a carport on the side of my structure, and then the other being that I wanted to put a portico on the front of my structure, could that be qualified as two different types of apply for the HRT for one? For other? That's for you guys to think about. I don't even answer. The other question is, because they're both under consideration at the same time, there were a number of projects in particular this time that were the exact same that came before both and they chose to withdraw or not based on whether the HRC approved them. So I agree that it may be more beneficial to make a recommendation to the Appearance Commission that they consider spreading the love, in particular for that one, outside of the district as much as possible. Y'all are limited in where you can apply funds, they're not.
Yes. That's why we're here tonight.
The opportunity to enhance downtown is great across both of these grants, one being a facade grant, one being a beautification grant. So that enhancement is what the return is for the city. I also heard an applicant make a statement that they didn't even bring a project forward because when they read the criteria, they realized that their project was going to score low, and therefore why bring it before you when they saw that it was a low scoring project. So I think it's also putting more effort on our applicants to think about what their enhancement projects are. So I would be an advocate to be in favor of enhancement as long as it works through the criteria. I think that was a huge benefit this year for this commission and also for the Appearance Commission. Could you make recommendations? Could those chairs ask the staff liaison at that time? Sure. Is that a hindrance? It's possible, but maybe the robustness of that project, the support is needed from those two channels of funding. So just something to consider, looking at it from another angle too.
Thank you, Mary. All right. Does anybody have anything else? We have lots to mull over. We have a couple of months to think about it and come back and do any changes that we need to change.
Thank you all for that feedback. It'll be iterated on, I'm sure, every year after we do it and see how the process is working, what needs to be tweaked. And I'll communicate some of those suggestions and recommendations to the Appearance Commission, as well as just to make sure we're all working in collaboration with each of the groups.
Great. Thank you very much. City Council updates. Melody Weekends, please.
So there were two pieces of action taken by the City Council that would affect all of you that you need to know about. One was the passing with conditions of the downtown conceptual plan. So there are several conditions to that, and you can read those. They are public information, so you can see those. They were passed at that time. The second thing that affects you is boards and commissions. And we talked about that before, but the council did approve the first reading of the boards and commissions code of ordinances that were recommended.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Is there any additional items? Mary?
Downtown Development Coordinator. To continue our conversation about grants and murals, earlier this year I came before you with a celebration that I had received funding that was made possible by the Community Innovation Fund, a partnership of Alamance Community Foundation and Impact Alamance. If you may recall, that went towards a project called Look Up Architectural Tours. That project ended October 13th. However, there's still some meat on the bone from that grant. So thinking outside the box, I asked permission if there was an extension for this money and could there be the expiration of another project. So I'll be coming back before you in December with the extension of the project. That you guys like to kind of have a little heads up. That new extension will be a mural in downtown with an umbrella of a historic content. So if you have any questions or clarifying points that's needed tonight, I'll entertain those now. Otherwise, I'll be back before you in December.
Okay.
Do we know where it's good? Do you have an anticipated location?
Number one, sought after location is the painted rectangle on the Alamance News's
Mhm.
building.
Okay.
Facing the street, facing the,
On
That
West, on
white-
West Elm.
oh, yeah.
I'm in conversation with the property owner. Details are still forthcoming.
Okay. We look forward to hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other additional items? If not, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second. Or adjourn. Thank you.